The stories shared on It Takes Balls are unique to the individual sharing. Always speak with your trusted medical provider for treatment options specific to you. Welcome back to It Takes Balls, presented by Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation. Today I'm joined by Anthony Garnot. He is a two-time survivor, about 20 plus years apart. So we'll dive into that. Anthony, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
So as I mentioned, you're two-time survivor. So the first time was in 2002. So take me back to 2002 when you first noticed something was wrong.
Yes. So I was a correctional officer for New York State. I live in New York. So I was just living kind of like a normal life. I was single, had a girlfriend, but just kind of like living on my own. And I was born in 75. So I was right around 26, 27. And had no signs of anything. But I was taking a shower one day, and I noticed a little bit of pain in my right testicle, and so it wasn't going away. So I waited a few weeks because I was a big gym guy. I went to the gym a lot, lift heavy weights, nothing great, but I was like, probably, I don't know how many people do it. Just kind of like putting off for a few weeks, but it wasn't going away. Then I went to one of my urologists up here at the time, and they kind of like quickly diagnosed that it was testicular cancer. And within really a couple of days, had the testicle removed. And then I did. So I did everything. I did the orchiectomy up here, the testicle removal up here, and then my urologist up here got me in touch with Sloan Kettering down New York City, and so then I went down there to see what the next step was. Was there a next step? And wasn't. So went down there, and then they did the CAT scans, did all the scans, and they found out that it spread to the lymph nodes in my stomach, and so at that point, I had a new chemo, and once again, I was going into this. Even after the surgery, the first surgery, I felt great. Really, I was back on my feet with really in a couple of days. Felt great, just living normal life, and then started the chemo. Like I said, doctor said doing chemo, so it's 4 cycles. Same thing as it was this time. 4 cycles, 2 weeks in between, 5 straight days, 2 weeks off. And honestly, it was, I was young, I was in great shape. It really wasn't that bad. You hear all the some bad stories of chemo and horror stories. It's like, so, I'm pretty positive most of the time. And I was like, all right, whatever happens, happens. I didn't have really any side effects besides losing my hair, and I was losing my hair before that, so it didn't matter. I was like, but as far as the way I felt overall, a little bit tired, and that was it. Like my 2 weeks off in between, I was living a normal life. I was, again, I took that time off from work because I wasn't working, but besides that, everything was normal, and if at any point you want to stop me, feel free if there's any other questions.
Oh yeah. So back like when you first felt something wrong, was testicular cancer something that you had been aware of or ever talked about?
No, never. Cancer runs in both my sides of my family. My mom passed away of cancer in 2006, breast cancer, and my dad has a lot of cancer on his side. My mom has a lot of cancer on her side. So we've always grown up around cancer, but it was never like I was the first person. I have 4 brothers. I have 3 brothers and a sister, my father and my mother passed, but nobody in my family ever had cancer, like as far as the immediate family. So knew about cancer, but never heard about testicular cancer. No, nothing.
And you're in Milton, New York. So, what is the situation with is it a small town? Is there a good hospital system there? I know you went down to Sloan Kettering, you said, but, Like, what was it like when you went for your orchiectomy?
So yeah, so I was living in Beacon at the time. Yeah, now I live in Milton with my wife and my son. But it was yeah. We have a good hospital by us. The Vassar Hospital is where kind of like I went through for the first surgery, and yeah, had a great urologist. He's Dr. Katz. He had great. He did the orchiectomy, and everybody. From the beginning to the end was great up here, and even Sloan Kettering, everybody was great. I honestly, I couldn't say a bad thing about anybody. So yeah, I did the surgery. Yeah, the surgery went as smooth as possible. I had no idea what to expect. At my age, I'm like, thinking all things that, what's the rest of my life look like? What's the percentages and stuff like that. But everybody from the beginning was like, even if it's like, even if testicular cancer, even if it was stage 3 or whatever, it was like, it's still very highly curable. So once I was told that, because mine was stage 2 both times, mine was stage 2 because it spread. And both times, even this time, there was really no concern on the doctor's part. They just said, okay, unfortunately you have to go through this. But at the end, you'll just live a normal life. So I did the before I had the chemo, I did the sperm banking because they said chemo could negatively affect that part of it, and so I did all that. But with the process, all that stuff was so brand new to me. I'd never, probably like most mid-20-year-olds, they just never even a thought on my mind. It was just I was just getting up, going to work every day, hanging out with my buddies and had my girlfriend and see my parents, and just a normal, as normal as it could be for me. And then, then I got hit with that. So.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned like with the chemo, it wasn't really as bad as they make it sound. And I agree, like mine was that way too. And I kind of feel like a weirdo for that. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
Were you able to work through, because corrections officer, that's like, my only exposure to it is like 60 days in and Orange is the New Black. But I mean, it seems like a pretty physically demanding job at times.
It is. I mean, it wasn't something that, after my orchiectomy, which was again, it was a while. It was kind of like around the same time. It was down like May, June. I was working, but we have a thing at work called light duty. So you're really not around the inmates or whatever, criminals. And then once I started chemo, I took straight off until the end. So December, I actually went back like 4 or 5 days before Christmas. I wasn't 100% as far as, physically, but I felt fine. Like I said, I wasn't, it was okay to work. So I went back. So I took about, I would say like 3-4 months off, and then I went back late December, and then I just gradually kind of like got better from that point on, and then I didn't really think about it at that point on. I just it was always something you have to live with, but it wasn't anything that restricted me from doing anything. I got back, working out and feeling good and just kind of like living my life like I was beforehand.
Interesting. All right. So then after you had your chemo, then did you do an RPLND the first time?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So after so right after the chemo, so I went back down to Sloan, and all the cancer, so I did the CAT scans again, and all the cancer was gone. They didn't see any cancer. None of the scans showed cancer. So the RPLND, which it was kind of like it was up to me. It was like, oh, okay, Anthony, we don't detect cancer anywhere. All the lymph nodes that were affected, we don't see cancer in there, but there is a chance there is something that's just not coming up on the scans. It's really like your choice. You can either elect to have the surgery and get the lymph nodes removed that were affected, or we'll just do very as far as follow-ups and stuff like that, we'll just be more on top of it. And at the time, like when I was when it happened at my age, like I didn't want to keep thinking like, okay, if I have a pain, this is going to happen. If this had, I didn't want to, like in my mind, I didn't want to keep, if something popped up, like, well, is it this? So I just said, okay, let's remove them, whatever. So I remember they removed five or six lymph nodes back then. And I believe there was, I don't know the number. I don't know if there was like 8 or 9. You would know more probably the exact amount of lymph nodes in your stomach. But they removed 5 or 6, which was a good amount. And that surgery was pretty intense. It was so if probably a lot of people that has gone through it, but it's like they basically open you up from your sternum all the way down to your belly button, pretty and take you out and open it up and take the lymph nodes out and sew you back up and staple you back up. And I was in the hospital for like almost a week on that one, and that was rough to come back from. It's cardio, stamina wise. Like I said, because the chemo went fine, it was as good as it could be. The orchiectomy went fine, and then I once again I didn't know anything about what RPLND was, because there was computers around, but not like today. Like the information wasn't available like today. Like I found so much this last time of what I went through 20 years ago than I ever knew back then. Like I didn't know even RPLND. I didn't realize it was that intense. Like that's not the way it was kind of like presented to me, that like there was a chance that, something could go wrong. And that was never presented to me at the time, because I don't know, maybe I wouldn't have done it back then, but that was pretty, but once again, probably for a couple weeks, but I was every day, because I wasn't working at that time. So every day I would get up, and I mean, in the beginning, man, I was just hunched over for a couple weeks, just because the staples were there. And then, but I would get up every day, walk, and jog, little by little. And then I went back down to Sloan. They took the staples out and boom, and slowly got better. And then I went, like I told you, I went back to work a little bit before Christmas. And like I said, I never really looked back after that point. It was just something I always saw in the mirror, taking a shower, something like that. But even after a while, it wasn't anything I ever concentrated on after that point.
Yeah. Did you have retrograde ejaculation? Because
yes,
that is, Sloan is one of the like high volume centers that is good at these, but 20 years ago, I don't know if things were different. So
yes, I did. So I had retrograde ejaculation. Yep. I had that. And that was, once again, it was, so they presented that to me, that was an issue. But I remember right after surgery, my doctor, when I came out of it, he said we were able to kind of like spare the nerve, like that nerve. And I'm like, okay, great. But for some reason, it never came back. It never came back. The other side of it was fine. I was able to, do the other part, that part of it, the ejaculation part never came back. So that's why, thankfully, I did store and stuff like that, because then I would have never been able. I mean, I know there's other means of trying to get it, but thankfully, I was able to do that before that. But yeah, I never recovered that.
Interesting. All right. And then, so you said you didn't look back. Did you do like the 5-year scans though?
Yeah. 5-year scans. I actually went down to, for 10 years, they monitored me. I believe the scans for 5 years, that I'm not sure about 100%, but it started off like every 3 months, and then it would be like 6 months. It was like, every year it would be like an extra month or 2 months, something like that. And then 10 years was when, at least up here, 10 years was when they basically said, okay, you're technically, cancer free. And I was like, great. But I never had between, from the time I started feeling really good after the first surgery, after the second surgery, then like I said, I didn't really think about it. I did my appointments whenever I did them, and then, like I said, when they said, you're good to go, I said, okay, great.
Interesting. And then, that's kind of, they were telling you like you're good to go, and you never thought it would reoccur.
No, never. I mean, it's, and you or other people that are in your spot, the odds of it are so rare. It does happen to people. There's no doubt it has happened. But it's so rare. And this time, the thing was, this time had nothing to do with 20 something years ago. All the doctors told me that, Anthony, it is what it is, but it is very uncommon. Usually you have it, and you never have to worry about it again. But 20 something years, 21 years ago had nothing to do with this time. They just wanted to let me know that because, just in case, did they miss something? But it doesn't take 20 years, for something. So, what I'm saying? So, I never thought about that anyway, but they just kind of they wanted to kind of reassure me that, that had nothing to do with this. And when this was over, they basically said, you shouldn't have, well, first of all, my testicles are gone, so it doesn't matter at this point, but I shouldn't have any cancer kind of that is associated with that anymore. Not saying I'm not going to have cancer again, but as far as association with that anymore, that type of cancer. But who knows? I honestly, I had my last chemo on June 16th, my last chemo treatment. And every day has been better ever since. So, but we'll skip to that later on. You can ask me whatever before that.
Yeah. So before you noticed, or before you went and got diagnosed with it for the second time, what was going on? Was it pain again, swelling, atrophy?
Yeah. It was weird. It was last on May of 2022, I retired from corrections because I had 25 years in New York State. You can retire after 25 years. I just didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to spend more time with my family and stuff like that. So, had a great summer last year. Again, living just a great life. Me, my son, my wife, having a great life. December, late December or early January. Yeah, it was late December because it was before Christmas. I joined the gym. In probably October, November of 22, and working out, getting back into it, blah blah blah. Because I just love. I'm as you can see, I'm constantly moving. I just need to do something.
And your arms look ripped, by the way.
So. Yeah. I'm just kind of starting to get back into that again. So I started going to the gym, and probably 2 months into it, like I said, mid-December, early December, right around there, pain on my left side. But this was worse pain. This was the first in 2002. It was a small bump that was sore. It was sore, but this one kind of came out of nowhere, which and that it's still nobody's really explained it to me how, but this one was okay. It was to the touch. I couldn't even really touch around the area. The mass itself was a lot bigger than the first time. And, just like the first time, just like the first time, I'm okay, well, maybe, I started the gym out of nowhere, started lifting heavy weights and wasn't getting worse. So I kind of all through Christmas, the family, no, my wife knew about it. That was it. And still sore, wasn't getting any better. So right after January, I made an appointment, not the same neurologist, a different neurologist, same area though. Went there. They did the scan right away, testicular cancer. This one devastated me, emotionally, not physically right away, but emotionally, just crushed me. Because, now I had my son. My wife, I did feel bad for my wife having to put her through this, but she's awesome. She's great. But this one, to actually hear it again, that I had this again, and now I had all this information through the computers and through all this stuff that I didn't have 20 something years ago. And, I knew actually before so I had the surgery 3 or 4 days later, took it out. Recovery was simple. Recovery wasn't bad, but now my body I have no testosterone. So, and the doctors, there was kind of like not a delay, but I don't know if it's just because they didn't deal with this as much but so every day my body is not producing testosterone, right? But I don't really, I know this, but I don't realize, I don't understand it like that, as far as what my body's going to be like, what I'm going to start facing in a couple of weeks. I don't realize it initially. Well, so they're kind of going through their end, the doctors reports of action, and so I get another CAT scan after that. Same thing, spread to my lymph nodes in my stomach. So it was that was honestly, it was the worst time in my life. It was probably 2 months. I just honestly, I didn't think I would be here today. And honestly, I didn't think I would be here today. Looking back on it now, just because mentally and emotionally where I was at that point, it was such a 180 from 20 something years ago where I was at. I didn't 20 something years ago. I felt even with the RPLND, I felt okay, this wasn't bad. The first 2 parts, the orchiectomy and the chemo, I weren't really bad at all. And, and I kind of hate saying that because I know a lot of people go through a lot of stuff. And the RPLND was tough a little bit, but not bad. But this time it was a 180. Everything, my body now produced testosterone, and just when my body hit where it didn't have testosterone in it, and I still, at that point, I wasn't on testosterone. I wasn't on it. They were still trying to figure out what was going on. And looking back on it now, that's where I get a little bit of my anger from back then, because I'm you guys are the doctors. You're the professional. You should have known this.
Angry with the doctors, you mean?
Yeah, the doctors.
Okay.
Because it's I knew my body wasn't going to produce testosterone anymore, but they should have definitely known, and to not put me on something right away.
Was this at Sloan?
No, this was the doctors up here at this point, because I hadn't gotten into Sloan yet. I did eventually, but I mean, and Steve and I was at rock bottom. I physically, physically, mentally, emotionally, I was done. Honestly, I was at the point where not as far as suicide or anything like that, but my body never felt worse in my life. I didn't even want to get up. I didn't want to, and then internally, there was just nothing inside of me that just wanted to do anything. And which I am so far from that. That's nothing like me. And so it was, and every day it was just, it's hard to explain. Most men don't have to deal with it, thank God. But when you take all your testosterone away and you got nothing, and I realized you literally need testosterone to survive, or you will die. It affects everything in your body. And I didn't realize that initially. And I was just in bad shape for probably a month or two. And then they got me on testosterone. And then once that started, I started with the injections. My wife was giving me injections. Now I take the gel. But once that started building up a little bit in my body, then I started feeling okay again. And then, so I went down. So in that whole process, I got together with Sloan again. Again, different doctors. All these doctors were different. I got together with Sloan again, did the CAT scans, they showed that it spread again. So I kind of use the analogy like Sloan was like driving the car, but I was getting my chemo up here they didn't deal with Sloan, but my doctor in Sloan was basically telling them what to do because I just didn't want to drive down the city every day. Yeah. And, my son and my wife was number one and Sloan was all okay with that. They were told that the doctor there was great. Again, great people all around the whole time.
Do you want to shout out the doctor?
But my doctor this time, Dr. Bajoran, Dean Bajoran down Sloan Kettering, great guy. Never met him in person. Everything was through like this. Was through video. Again a great guy, always open. If I needed to call him any questions, was always there. Amazing. So once again, so he told me it spread. I said okay. So I started my chemo up here in March, April, right around there, right around March, April. Again, I knew it would be a little bit tougher because of my age, or I thought it would be. Once again, a 180 from 20-something years ago. This one, everything, I like 20-something years ago, I felt like everything went smooth. Mm-hmm. This one, I felt nothing went smooth. Like the whole time. So that's every step of the way for this time, like the whole, almost 6 months, it was like a struggle the whole way. Like I said, I want to give a shout out to my wife, and she was amazing because I'm not a crier. I'm not an emotional guy in general. I've never cried more in my life. I've never been more emotional. I've never been lower in my life than those months. Not in my life. I never have been. That's just not my personality. But so first week of chemo. So I wanted all the chemo through my veins again. I didn't do the port. Mm-hmm. I didn't want the port the first time. I didn't want it this time. Looking back on it, I would have got the port not even thinking about it because all I had was problems this time. My veins collapsed in both my arms. It was just kind of like one thing. It was just one thing after another. While I was getting chemo, I had to go to the emergency room. I had a massive tooth infection in my tooth. They had to give me medication for that. Then at the same time, my one arm, my vein collapsed, and this one was okay. And they both collapsed, and it was just the whole time. It was just my energy level was that. I mean, again, not to where it was no testosterone, but just beat me up every day.
Did the testosterone thing, like where you were not on testosterone, did that overlap with the start of chemo? So did you do any chemo without testosterone?
I did. It wasn't totally built up in my body because sometimes it takes like up to 2 months, sometimes 3 months. So it wasn't fully built up in my body where they wanted it. Because I was going to delay it. I was going to delay my chemo because I even told them, I told the doctor, I said, guys, I can't, there's no way I physically can start chemo the way I am now. There was just no way because I knew what chemo I knew it was going to be harder than the first time. And so I'm like, there's no way I'm going to put that on top of my testosterone. There's just no way. So, but luckily I once again, the time frame I was on, but I want to say it was maybe 3 weeks, right around there, 3 weeks that I was getting the testosterone before I started getting the chemo. And by the time I started getting my first round, I actually started feeling pretty good. It was like, okay, that part's over. And really, once the testosterone was good, like I said, I was kind of like feeling back to normal. I still lost weight. My weight was down a little bit. But I kind of like expected that I wasn't really doing anything. So then I went to chemo, and the first week kind of like went smooth as far as smooth it can be. And then as you know, like the next week or that weekend, then it just like hit me. And then every week after the first one was just brutal. And the last week was like I kind of like got out of it. I never had vomiting. I never had anything. Even 20 some years ago, I never had vomiting. Even through this whole cycle, and then I went the last week, and I was, like I said, every week was harder. So my nurses were great. Shout out the Hudson Valley Cancer Center up in Poughkeepsie. The nurses were great. They were honestly, they got me through. They understood, and they just totally kind of like held my hand the whole way. They were awesome, and they knew, like, usually by Wednesday, my body was just shutting down, man. It was tough, and but my veins collapsing and the tube stuff, and just the way I was feeling, it was the hardest. There was nothing even to compare in my life, honestly, because I mean, nobody has easy lives, but there was nothing comparable to what I went through. Especially the chemo time, there was just really nothing to compare it to, because it was such a 180 from what I do every day. And so it was tough. It was tough. I'm not going to lie. This one was toughest point of my life.
Yeah. And I know you mentioned that you had the same chemo 20 years ago, and then this year, was it BEP or EP?
It was the EP. Okay. I didn't have to do the B. They thought, initially I was going to have to get the BEP. I didn't want the B because I know the B is tough. Mm-hmm. But the doctor, because of my age, he's like, well, he said, Anthony, this was my Sloan doctor, Dr. Bajorn. He said, well, since 20 something years ago, since those two went so well, then there's no reason to think that this isn't going to go well. So you don't really need to be. But on top of that, it was because of my age. On top of that, it was because normally if I was younger, if this was 20 something years ago, they probably would have given me the B. But at my age, they didn't want it. They said, listen, we'll do without the B. We expect all good things. And I said, oh, okay, great. And so, yeah, it was the same. Said that was the drugs and the amounts and the times in between and the cycle time. Everything was the exact same.
Was there any concern with, by the end of the second time, you would have had 8 doses of everything. Was there any concern with pumping you that deep with this stuff?
You know what, Steve? Nobody ever said anything to me, even to this day. I read on it, and I know there can be long-term effects from it, and you can get stuff because of it. It can cause other cancers and stuff like that. There was really no other options, though. I mean, kind of like what I read, it's either, there's kind of like no either. It's like, once it spreads,
yeah.
I mean, it's I either could do nothing and kind of like just wait, or this was really the only option that I had. So it's like, I don't even know the doctors, especially down Sloan, because he's the one I kind of like asked all the questions to, but he said there's really like nothing to worry about as far as everything he's seen. Yes. Can there be? Sure. I mean, I'm not naive, and I read, I read a lot on it, and I understand that. But I'm a very God-fearing man. I'm very religious, and I kind of like leave it up to God's hands, man. I got to be honest. I didn't think, 6 months ago, I didn't think I was going to be here today. I've always prayed and stuff like that. And whether people believe or don't believe, I do. I'm very big into that. And I said, well, God, listen, I kind of like asked for certain things. I wanted to beat this, and I want to see my son grow up at least till he goes to college. Will I be? I don't know. I gotta be honest. I don't know. I mean, I pray that I will be. But if I'm not, all I can do is try to make something or make a lasting impression, kind of like while I'm here, and try to do the best I can while I'm here.
Yeah. I want to talk more about your son because I know that you did IVF. And I think you're the first person I've talked to on this podcast who has done IVF. So any information that you can give on that is great.
Yeah, well, once again, that wasn't easy for my wife. That was easy for me. It wasn't easy for my wife. It was, she got pregnant. It was on her 8th time. So it's like emotionally for her, it's for a woman, it's devastating. It's tough. It's very tough because most women or whatever want children and they want to get married, have kids, whatever way you got to do it. And once again, my wife met me. I met my wife way after I had the first time, way after I had my cancer the first time. So, she knew everything. She knew everything I went through. But, I always had this stuff and she knew about my previous, she knew about my retrograde. She knew about all that stuff and she knew I stored. So that wasn't an issue. But when it came to actually, because we had no other choice but to do IVF because I couldn't do it naturally. Mm-hmm. We're thinking, okay, no IVF, all right, no, maybe the first time, okay, maybe it doesn't work. That's it. But then it was like second time, third time, fourth time, fifth time, and it's like every time for a while. I mean, I felt terrible for her that she had to go through that for me. She doesn't look at it that way. She's like, well, Anthony, it could have been me. She's like, she doesn't say, well, it was you. It's because I don't know if it's because it was my sperm was low at the time or if it was her. I always go back to it's probably on my end. Whether it was or not, it doesn't matter. But it was very tough. It was like I had to give her injections every time, just pump her full of stuff. And then, it was like 2 or 3 months you had to do that. And then, they do the implant, and like 7 times, man, it didn't work. And she was kind of like done with it. She was done. We were going to adopt. We went through, we kind of like went through an adoption seminar, because we wanted kids. We wanted at least one kid. We both loved kids. And we were kind of like, okay, this is God's plan. This is the plan. For some reason, we weren't supposed to have kids. And so we went to adoption seminar. I said, my wife wasn't going to do it. I said, well, would you maybe try one more time? Just try one more time, maybe see what happens. And she did. And she got pregnant. And that was it. And then we didn't try again after that. We just said, okay, because even on the woman's side with all those chemicals, it's the more, not saying anything is going to happen, but those chemicals aren't, they're not natural all the time, so it's, they're on her end, like they're pumping her full of stuff too. And so once we had my son Mason, we were blessed. We said, what, this is what God has in store for us. And she didn't want to risk it anymore. I didn't want to risk it for her. And my son is healthy, happy boy. So
that's great. What was the time frame for the 8 attempts?
It was, so she kind of like, it was, I'm trying to think when we started, because we got, we were married in 2009, bought our house in 2010. It was, I want to say, man, my son was born in 2016. So I want to say it was like between 2011 and 2016, or maybe it's 2000, but it was like a 4 or 5 year period.
Okay.
Because so it was like kind of like every time there was a fail, you had to wait. It was about 6 months. So it was like sometimes like 2 a year, but then at the end we slowed down because she just didn't want to do it as much. And then the last one was then she got pregnant in 2015. 2015 she got pregnant, and then he was born in June of 2016. So it was like I said in the beginning, it was like, okay, we failed, we gotta wait, we gotta wait a few months, let's do it again. And that was good for like 3 or 4. And then it was like, then, when it was all for her, it was like, that's something I said, hey, whatever you want to do, that's, I'll adopt. We both wanted kids, so we knew we would have kids some sort of way. And then the last time was, I would say right around, had to be right around October, is when she got kind of like the results of her being pregnant, so of 2015.
And was all of the 8 attempts, or those based on your one time banking, or because
Yes.
I know? Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, I only banked. I banked before. My first right after my orchiectomy, but right before my chemo started. I banked in 2002 or whatever, and I kept them frozen the whole time, and every time we did an IVF, there was when they went to go on freeze the vials, there was sperm there. I mean, there was enough sperm there to get her pregnant, but for whatever reason, it just wasn't working. Thankfully, I was able to get whatever I did at the time. So.
That's interesting. I think I'm going to try to talk to somebody who specializes in IVF now, because to not only store it for 10 plus years, but then for it to be viable after accessing it for 5 years is kind of amazing.
Yeah. Like you said, it was because I stored in 2002, and and then my wife got pregnant in 2016. So yeah. Amazing. Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about that I didn't ask?
No. It's, so once all this chemo was done, this time, I kind of like, it was like I said, my last treatment was on June 16th, and it was a rough 2 weeks. It was the roughest physically. It was, the testosterone was the roughest, not having that. But after that, that was those 2 weeks right after my last treatment were very, very tough. But honestly, every day since then has gotten better. And like, as of today, if you didn't tell me I had cancer, I wouldn't think I've had cancer, because I feel great. Kind of back to exercising 4 or 5 days a week, running again, just working out as much as I can. Not crazy, but just where I feel good. My son is a very active kid. I'm able to do everything that I did before, and not even thinking about it. And honestly, most days, unless somebody asks me a question, I don't even, thank God, I don't even think about it. Like my wife was like, her my wife's name Sarah. I said, yes, Sarah, I don't even think about it. I just get up and, I'm kind of like get up early. And so I kind of like, I told you, so I retired last year, but once my son goes back to school in New York, they go back in September. I'm going to start working again. Kind of like, I feel great. There's nothing holding me back from doing anything. But no, there's really nothing else I can really think of. I wasn't, the only thing I can do, so the second time I had it, I thought in my mind, by everything I was reading, I thought I was going to need the RPLND again, because everything I read was kind of like, well, once it goes into your lymph nodes, it's kind of like RPLND is like, it would always be up to me, but it's kind of like, okay, well, chemo's done. Okay, what's your decision going to be about RPLND again? And I made my decision early on in the process. I said, I'm not going to do it again unless the doctor says, and we suggest that you do it again. If it was up to me, like the first time, I was never going to do it again. I just didn't want to go. I didn't want to go through that again. I was going to say, I basically was going to leave it up to, again, I was going to leave it up to God's hands at that point. I was never, so my Sloan doctor called me right around the beginning of July. That was my first, after my CAT scans. So I had my CAT scans like 2 weeks after my CAT scan. So maybe 3 weeks later, I saw my Sloan doctor, Dr. Bajorn. And at this point, I'm feeling okay. I'm still kind of like recovering from chemo. I'm feeling okay because it's like the third week or whatever. But man, I mean, I just thought in my mind he's going to say, okay, and you're going to need RPLND again. And I'm like, and I was going to say, hey, doctor, are you telling me I need it or is it my choice? Because I was literally willing to say, I'm not going to do it unless you're recommending it. And he said, no, man, we recommend you not doing it. There's nothing here. He's like, 20-something years ago was totally different. He's like, where we're at right now, he's like, there's nothing on the scans, nothing in any of your blood work, nothing that we would even think about doing it. He's like, I gotta be honest. He's like, even if we thought you did need it, to do it twice is, the risk and the odds just go up from that point on. Mm-hmm. So he said, so even if you didn't need it, he's like, we don't recommend you. He's like, we don't think you need it anyway. But even if you did need it, he's like, we don't even know what we would do at that point. He's like, but everything we see, we're looking at. He's like, you're 100% good. Just kind of like keep doing what you're doing, and just stay on top of your doctor visits and your scans, and if anything else pops up, just kind of like let us know. So,
yeah. And unrelated, but I had some blood in my stool. So yesterday at my physical, I got a finger up the butt. So I just want to share that.
Oh, did you? Okay. I haven't done that yet. So is everything good on your end?
We're going to find out. I think it's probably just a hemorrhoid or something.
Yeah. Okay.
Better get it checked. But anyway,
yeah.
Are you on social media or anything? If somebody wants to find you, if they connected with something you said?
I'm on Facebook. That's the only thing I do. I'm not a social media guy. I honestly, I reached out to you because I wanted to get my story out there. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, but, I did, cause when I went through it this time, of course there was no social media like this. So last time, the only people that knew was my family and my friends, but this time nobody knew either except for my family and friends. But after it was over, I just felt like there was a reason this happened to me again. And because this happened to me, like, I didn't want to just keep this information to myself or all these things to myself because and I know people say if I could help one person, but like for me, it's kind of like, it feels like if anybody has a question, like whether young, old, middle, like me, somebody going like myself, if they're going through anything, I kind of like want to be there for them. I just don't want it to be about me this time. Not that last time it was, but like I said, there wasn't anything like this last time. So the only thing, like I said, the only thing I'm on is Facebook. My Anthony John is what I'm on Facebook. If anybody wants to reach me, but anything else, like all the other stuff, I'm just not on. But I'm totally open to helping anybody anyway. If they said need to talk, anything. If I'm around, I'll definitely take the call. If anybody needs anything, like I said, I'm not even like comfortable doing this because this is my thing. But you're the first person kind of like that. I said, okay, this is something I felt like I wanted to do, and just to get my story out there. If anybody's relatable or going through things like that I went through, this, just to let them know there is an ending. I understand, like, as a man, it's hard to wrap your head around like things like this. But as far as me, even my position, like everything sexually is normal. It's even my brother's like, dude, how's that? I'm like, listen, you don't need your testicles to have erections and have sex, but if you told me that before this, I'd be like, there's no way. But that doesn't have anything to do with your erections and stuff like that. So I kind of like wanted to get my story, as when guys go through this, again, men are men, I don't know what the percentages of it, but most men don't even have to deal with this, their whole life. So, people that do, I kind of like just wanted to get my message out there. So I did put a message on Facebook, letting everybody know, like my friends, and there was not a lot, but just letting my friends kind of like know what's been going on with me. Because again, you change, and so you just get, more introverted during the whole process and you're not feeling good. And I just wanted to let people know kind of like where I've been and what I've been going through. And everybody, of course, everybody was great. And And but I had my really close friends that were there through me, were there with me like through the whole time, and they kind of like picked me up and helped out with the family and stuff like that when I needed them to, and that was great. I can't. Everybody, even the doctors were everybody, friends, family, doctors. Everybody was great through the whole process. But like I said, just to going back. So yes, I am open to helping other people out if they were just talking to them, whatever they need. So
awesome. Well, I'm glad it seems like you're on the upswing after having been through it. And like you said, it's good to hear from somebody who's been through it twice, which hopefully is as many times as a person could go through it if they had to. And it seems like you're doing great. So
yeah,
Anthony, thank you so much for being on It Takes Balls.
Thank you, Stephen. Have a good day.
For more information and resources for your testicular cancer journey, visit testicularcancerawarenessfoundation.org. You can also follow us on social media at Testis Cancer. We're on Facebook at Testicular Cancer Awareness Foundation.